Thornton, I'm just wondering the statement that Senator Unger made as far as leaving the southern districts overpopulating, which would mean you would have to leave northern districts underpopulated, or vice versa, I'm sorry. Leaving southern districts underpopulated by 5%, which means you'd have to overage the northern districts. As closely as you're following this, I would suspect that you're going to hold our feet to the fire on some things.
I'm just going to say that's what the state constitution says. The districts are supposed to be kept compact. They're not supposed to cross county lines, but we have to in some cases because in 1962, I believe, was the U.S. Supreme Court in Baker v. Carr said, notwithstanding the state constitutions, you've got to have basically one person, one vote, even in the state senates. And they honed it in, and now the basic rule is the smallest population has to be at least 90% of the largest population, which has been described different ways by different speakers. But that's the way that I would describe it. But that doesn't mean you should try to go for the variances. You should try to go for perfection, and especially if you can do it without crossing without crossing county lines. The problem is political, but I mean in terms of carrying out the state constitution. And certainly nobody can deny there's a huge community of interest among Logan, McDowell, Mingo, and Wyoming counties. I mean, I can't think of any 4 counties in the state that probably have more community of interest than those 4 counties in terms of similarities of challenges, as Senator Unger was saying. But I realize that means you would have, you'd have 4 senators cutting down 4 senators to 2. I'm just saying it's a much more compact district than having it stretch all the way from not too far from Huntington on the one end to not too far from Bluefield on the other. And so was I responsive to your question, Senator?
Well, to a certain degree. I think my question, more precise, would be if we intentionally reduce the population of those present southern districts in order for them to retain more senators down here, and intentionally elevated the population of northern or eastern districts. In other words, 109 is ideal, but 114 or so was 114. Is that the?
Well, that's roughly. Say if you went from 104 to 114, you would be in the range. But I'm just saying, if you were going to have the differential, I mean, I'm basically trying to push for 109,000, but where Senator Unger lives, those 5 counties that I identified, they're a little bit less than 218,000 together, 213. If they're going to have variances, the logical thing would be to have, and I'm not saying you should have variances, but if you're going to have the lower numbers up in the northern and eastern part, because that's where you're going to have the growth, you'll probably have more reduction down here. So I mean, if you're talking about just protecting people from having to run against each other, that's one thing. But if you're talking about population trends, if you're going to have any variances, if you believe any variances should be justified, you would have the districts be more populous down here and less populous where Senator Unger is, because that clearly the trends are that the population is going to grow up there and it'll probably drop more here. And in Kanawha County as well, where I live. But I'm not suggesting you have the variances, but if you got to do it, the logic would be to have it in the other direction.
Thank you. You have answered it.
Right.